Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 23 of the Moody Gooners podcast. Great to see you all. I'm here as usual with my partner in crime, Jason. How are you doing, my old chum?
I'm doing very well, sir. Very well.
Good.
Pleased, that we got that result last night. So yeah, very happy.
Yeah, it was a big one. And as you've segued into there, today we're going to be talking about the cracking win. The really feels like kind of a clutch win, as the cool kids say these days, in the in the Champions League away from home last night. Great win. So we'll be kind of doing the usual kind of thing around that, taking a little look at some of the kind of key sort of things that came out of that game, and then also having a quick look at the game on the weekend against Sheffield United. It was a quick turnaround, obviously, from a intense game at Stamford Bridge to this one. So I think it was a few nerves maybe going into this game, but we'll get into all of that. Again, just the usual piece of housekeeping. The Moody Gooners is an Arsenal podcast with a difference being meshing together our love for all things Arsenal with mental health. So at the end of each pod, we will do a prediction for the upcoming next game. And then if we get that wrong, which we always tend to, that will lead to a donation to our mental health charity of choice at the end of the season. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So talk to me about what you felt about the team. I mean, I think the team is basically the same as it was on Saturday, wasn't it? Except for we had Tomiyasu starting this time at left back. But I think it kind of picked itself good, I guess, to see the front three together again. And I think that did actually kind of show a little bit more fluidity, them kind of being in the team again for a second game. And then obviously we had the rather predictable news of Thomas Partey allegedly having some kind of muscular injury that's caused him to not be able to be in the squad for the game. But what were your thoughts going into this one?
So I mean, from the lineup perspective, I was a bit disappointed to see David Raya still in. I'm trying to not be too on his case about stuff, not that he knows who I am or anything, but I don't want to dig the guy out too much. But it's like there's been one too many, very close to being howlers, for want of a better word. And I just thought maybe he'd go with Aaron, but I don't know. I think like a lot of Arsenal fans, I just think that Arteta's not really. He's got to stick to his word and rotate if things aren't quite going right. So yeah, I mean, a little bit surprised to see him. Obviously, when the Partey news came through, I was like, oh, what's going on? And then obviously it's become apparent that he picked up a muscle injury in training. I think it was on the Monday. I think it was. So that's kept him out, and a bit of a knockback again. And then the Tomiyasu thing at left back, which I think is I think what they were trying to do here is obviously think a bit more defensively, because I think he offers that bit more cover than Zinchenko does. So yeah, surprised to see that, but I know we both predicted draws for the game, but I was hopeful. But I was feeling all right.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think Jorginho being in midfield, I'm not as bothered about it when it's a game in the Champions League, where typically the pace is a lot lower than the Champions League. So admittedly, I would love to have seen Thomas Partey in there. Preferred to have seen that. It'd be interesting to know, if he was fit, whether Arteta would give us the midfield that all the fans are crying out for. But I don't know about you, but I think it's time for us to get a replacement in. And I'm a massive fan of Thomas Partey. I actually think he's one of the best midfielders in the world last season.
Yeah.
But the best ability is availability, and if he can't stay fit, and he seems to be having these recurring kind of muscular injuries, and unfortunately he's not going to be able to. If he's going to break down once every couple of months, and he just cannot be part of the plan for me, unfortunately.
It's not reliable,
and it's annoying because I think that 3-man midfield that we're wanting to see could potentially be the best midfield in Europe. If that sounds quite a bold statement, but I think it's got ability for sure.
It's funny. I almost look at it now and I go, Jesus, we look really light in that sort of area. We spent 100 million plus on Declan Rice, brought him in, and you think, okay, the midfield should be there, but it's not. One injury, and it's not like this is a one-off occurrence. This is something that's happening quite regularly, as you say, with Partey. So
Yeah.
to see him get injured, and then and now we're relying on a 10 million acquisition from Chelsea, who his best years, bless the guy for trying, but his best years are behind him, I think, and I think we're looking a bit light now in there. So I think the time would be to try and fix that maybe in January. Try and go for somebody maybe a bit younger with a bit more legs to them, and a bit more of a prospect that can come in for 6 months, 12 months, and then take the place really.
Yeah, I think El Nenny's contract runs out at the end of the season. Jorginho's contract runs out at the end of the season, and Thomas Partey's on the scrap heap. And like from an injury perspective, so I certainly think there's talent still there. But I was hoping we'd basically be able to put almost all of our transfer kitty into one or two, maybe one marquee attacking signing. I still would love Victor Osimhen. He's only got 1 year left on his contract come the summer as well, so potentially available for not the ridiculous kind of money that someone like an Mbappe or could have cost a few years ago, or some of these players that are on long-term contracts. Imagine trying to buy someone like Haaland; it costs over 200 million probably. But I think now we're going to either have to renew Jorginho and then buy another midfielder. But as we've seen in the summer, £100 million seems to be the going rate for some clogger on the back of Hackney Marshes on a Sunday afternoon. So it's going to be
Chelsea, I think, in my view.
Yeah, thanks Chelsea. It's the Mudryk factor, isn't it? That kind of triggered it. And so looks like we're going to have to open our war chest up that little bit wider come the summer. But I was quite happy to see the team. Other than that, obviously Aaron Ramsdale returned to the bench as well, which was good to see after birth of his first child, and obviously we congratulate him for that. And the game. I mean, when the game started, I think what was quite good inside the first 10 minutes. There seemed to be a little bit more. Again, I don't know if it's part of the game plan or whether or not Arteta's recognised a lot of what the fans have seen, but I noticed Arsenal kind of a lot more proactive. There's a bit of a higher tempo about the first initial stage of the game, and the player that really stood out for me actually was Tomiyasu. I noticed he was almost playing in like a left 8 at some point. Yeah. Not only was he kind of in other games when he's inverted in midfield, he's been very positionally disciplined. He kind of just tried to almost be a bit of a holding midfielder and not try and get forward too much and do what Zinchenko typically does. But I noticed it was one shot he sort of dragged the ball wide from about 20 yards with good effort on goal, and he was kind of popping up all over the pitch in quite advanced positions. I was like, he really stood out for me, like showing kind of. I'd always seen him as just a really good, solid defensive player. Even when he kind of goes into midfield, I think, oh bless him, he's trying to do the Zinchenko thing. But he kind of surprised me yesterday. He sort of he showed me that he's got maybe a little bit more about him than I'd give him credit, because he obviously plays centre half for Japan. But I thought he really stood out to me as someone who was really sort of roving around the pitch in sort of quite advanced areas, trying to win the ball and also offer a little bit of goal threat and creativity. I don't know whether you sort of noticed that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the opening exchanges, I could see that it was a much better start than we had against Chelsea. We were a lot more assured in possession, and there seemed to be a purposefulness to it. There was intent, and we were passing, but not just for the sake of passing. They seemed to sort of be proactive, get on the front foot, and make things happen. And as you say, epitomised really by Tomiyasu. He's, so as you say, popping up in that 8 position. There was that early chance, wasn't there, with Martinelli just sort of passing the ball in, and it was just nice to see us have a crack at goal. I mean, speculative from that distance, and maybe with Tomiyasu, but why not? Is more than what we did in the first half against Chelsea, even early on in this game. So really encouraging start.
Yeah, and it's sort of the game sort of started well, and I thought Arsenal were very much on the front foot. I mean, for the first time in a long while, we were kind of controlling possession, controlling the ball, but with a little bit more tempo. I wouldn't say that we had a glut of chances, but we looked a bit brighter. To your point, a bit sort of more lively. So that was obviously great to see. But then I noticed after the initial 10 minutes was up, Arsenal sort of dropped back a little bit more into the shape we've seen of late, and Sevilla kind of started playing their started getting a little bit more territory and and control of the game. And I would say the first half was kind of almost became a little bit dull again, where both teams were kind of sort of feeling each other out, if you like, and it was all a little bit kind of lacking in goal threat. I mean, we did have the Martinelli,
the big chance, big chance,
big chance where he's gone through on goal, and again, it was he should have scored. I mean, again, he's probably still coming out from injury. We're not a team that's kind of carved out lots of goal threat in recent games, so maybe there's an element of nervousness around that while we're trying to sort of find our rhythm going forward. But when you're through 1-on-1 on goal, he sort of tried to give the goalkeeper the eyes and didn't really do it well enough.
He could have kept it on it, like he did for his eventual goal that he got. He could have gone around the outside of the goalie, and he's got to be more clinical, especially in the latter stages of the Champions League. When you get an opportunity like that, you have to put it away. You're not going to get many, gilt-edged chances like that. So, it just needs to be a bit more clinical. I don't want it to be like 1 in 3. He's got to be putting that away, especially that sort of, that opportunity. Yeah, that's exactly it. And especially in a fixture like that, away from home, Champions League, against a team that typically don't suffer falls easily at home in European competition, you do kind of look at these gilt-edged chances and you think, oh God, is that going to come back to bite us? But fair play to Martinelli. The one thing he does give you is he gives you a willingness to kind of dust off disappointment and sort of keep sort of going for it, really. And but I felt the game was kind of a little bit sort of lacking in goal threat. It was almost like a first half of 2 chances. You had that Martinelli chance, and then you had En-Nesyri got played in by Campos, and then on his left foot in that kind of inside left channel, not on his strong foot, and he's dragged the ball just wide of the goal. And really, I couldn't really say that I saw much goal threat outside of those 2 chances in the half. I mean, the only other thing to sort of probably call out was David Raya with really bad ball out from the back to Rakitic, and another one to Acuna, who I can't stand, by the way. That guy's absolute filth on a stick. The left back for Argentina,
but every time Raya got the ball, he seemed to just pass it straight to them. And when you're passing to someone like Rakitic, who's got all that ability on the ball, it's never a good sign. But we got away with it, and then obviously just when we're looking like we're going to go in at half time 0-0, Sevilla had a set piece, ball into the box, Gabriel clears, ball finds itself up to Jesus, who has to be said, like his initial touch was quite a heavy one, but that Cruyff turned to go between two Sevilla player, and the weight of pass and the timing of the run by Martinelli was absolutely sublime. And then to have that kind of coolness in front of the goal from Martinelli, who obviously knows that he's butchered a chance earlier on in the half, to just be able to compose himself in front of his goal, not snatch at it. It'd be quite nice to him to finish it sort of first time confidently and emphatically, but I like the fact that he stayed cool and calm. He rounded the goalkeeper, and you've got world-class defender like Ramos chasing back, and he's just tucked it into an empty net. But talk me through that goal, because I thought Jesus, again, apart from the heavy touch, but the Cruyff turn and the weight of pass was exactly the kind of thing that why we love the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jesus looked very bright and sharp for a lot of the half. He seemed eager to sort of make things happen. He had an early shot that went over the bar as well. That sort of pocket to that sort of left side, you could see Jesus linking up with Martinelli and Tomiyasu coming in. We seem to be getting quite a bit of joy down that left-hand side in particular. I mean, the goal, beautiful, swift counter-attack. Jesus, as you say, with the Cruyff turn, taking out 2 defenders just by doing so, and then releasing Martinelli, who's just burnt away. There's no hope for any defender catching him. Shades of that goal he had against Chelsea a couple of years ago. He ran the sort of length of the pitch sort of thing. It was you're not catching him. It's just not happening. And then, as you say, the composure to go around the goalie, stroke it into the empty net. Brilliant. Excellent, sort of fully deserved as well, I think, because I think we were the we were the team that were pressing more and offering more of a goal threat without necessarily, peppering the goal with shots. I do think that we were the ones sort of controlling it a little bit more. And just before half time, it's exactly what you want, isn't it? I remember, I think I saw Sergio Ramos' comments after the game where he said, they felt a little bit down at half time. It's the perfect time to score a goal, isn't it? It's like that sucker punch of knock.
I don't even think it was any other action after the goal. I think I remember they were showing a replay of it on TV, and you could hear the final whistle go off, in the background. So the halftime whistle go in the background, and it was it was nice to go in, and I like you say. I mean, there wasn't a huge amount of goal threat, but we definitely looked like the team that had a little bit more quality about us. I think, having been to that stadium myself only a few months ago, I did also feel that the Arsenal players and the way we performed were able to kind of really subdue the atmosphere a bit as well. I wouldn't say it was completely subdued, but it's definitely a lot more a lot less raucous than from what I've seen before. So, and I think that's credit to how Arsenal kind of got the ball down and played it and had a sort of quality in possession and technical ability to sort of. I think when you go to these places, actually just dominating the ball, even if you don't do a lot with it for the first 15 minutes, is kind of almost key, because you do kind of take away that 12th man, if you like. And I think we did a really good job with that as well. So
yeah, very, very pleased, to sort of silence the crowd. They're so difficult. You'd think, on paper it looks like an easy sort of, we should be able to get a result and stuff like this, but they're no mugs. Sevilla have got a great European heritage. It's not. It was a big ask for our guys tonight. Coming off the back of that performance at Chelsea, they needed to really get, ramp themselves up, and I think they did all right in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people weren't really talking about this, but I really don't know why we were not given the lunchtime kickoff on the Saturday. Because to go from playing at Stamford Bridge on the evening game to then playing on the Tuesday away from home against a team they've got such recent European pedigree like Sevilla, and Sevilla do have sort of 4 or 5 or 6 really good players in their starting 11. Thinking in the Siri, Acuna is good, Ramos. Campos and Rakitic, like really good players, and for us to have that short turnaround. I mean, the Premier League does have to look at its scheduling as well and say, I know the Premier League and UEFA are 2 different entities, but why can't Man United had a home game against Copenhagen, we're away in Seville. Why can't we be what happens to these Friday night games? Why can't we play Friday night or Saturday lunchtime? So it kind of was a bit mad, and I think that's kind of what triggered a lot of my nervousness going into this one. The fact that there was such a short turnaround time, and we were away from home against a team that's really, really strong. But yeah, obviously great way to end the first half. Martinelli, first European Champions League performance and first goal. Apparently he scored on his Europa League debut and also his Premier League debut as well. So he's got 3 from 3 in those. From those. Yeah, so it was great to see. And then second half, it was amazing. I mean, I thought Sevilla starting off in the second half, they really had their foot off the ball and really gave Arsenal encouragement. Arsenal encouragement to go and get that. I mean, even before we scored our second one, I remember the ball kind of fell to Odegaard, broke to him in the box, and he leaned back and got underneath it and sort of skied it over the bar. Ben White had a shot. It was good to see him having a dig from distance in his blue rinse, but he he blasted one into row F or G, and then the goal came. I mean, it was Declan Rice taking the ball, carrying the ball well into the kind of left half space, feeding the ball to Jesus quite wide, and even when Jesus gets the ball, there's no sort of chance to be had there. It's like, in fact, the higher probability is probably that he hangs the ball up at the far post for maybe Saka to come running in and tap something home, or but he's taken on Jesus Navas, Jesus on Jesus action, cut inside and then just whipped such a beautiful goal into that top corner. And to be honest with you, when he scored, I'm immediately looking at it going, we've got this goal now. We've Sevilla's fans and team have just completely lost their heads to start the second half. I was quite surprised how bad they started that second half. And I'm looking at that then going, right, we need to kill this game now. We need to make this 3-0. And I could see 3-0 quite comfortably happening not too far after that. But thoughts on Jesus' goal?
Well, yeah, I mean, as you say, we came out for the second half. You know, it was really great start to the second half. I was expecting us to sort of sit back and just sort of maybe absorb a bit of pressure, but they really invited us onto them. And you know, fair play to us. You know, we wanted to press home the advantage. Before we get on to the goal, just winding back a little bit, I want to just talk about Martin Ødegaard, because I know he had that chance. Now, is it me, or are things not quite happening for him individually at the moment? Because he's looked really off the pace for the last few games. He was quite ineffectual in this game. He was
substituted.
The same sort of thing happened with Chelsea, although a lot of the players were off the boil that day. But he doesn't seem to be quite, I don't know, he seems to be forcing it a little bit, and it's not quite happening for him. You know, I know he was a difficult opportunity where he skied it over. He probably needed a bit more composure. You know, it was great play in the build-up, Martinelli stealing the throw-in, and then Jesus sort of playing him in, a little lofted ball and stuff. But what are your thoughts? I think Martin Ødegaard maybe is not quite firing on all cylinders at the moment. He just seems a little bit rusty.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you. I mean, I think we even debated on the last pod about, or it might have been when we met up, but you know, the idea of substituting your captain is not really the done thing. And fair play to Arteta, because another manager might have gone, oh, he's my captain, I can't really be seen to be taking off my captain, but he didn't hesitate to do it. And yeah, I mean, to your point, I guess we can dive a bit into the reasons why we think he's like this. I mean, I do think you know, players do naturally go through some peaks and troughs anyway. But I do think the whole midfield balance thing, and you know, the signing of Havertz, the fact that Partey's not been injured and been able to be on the pitch at the same time as Declan Rice really for many games, I do think that's actually the overall balance of it is impacting Ødegaard as well. Those to me would be the two things. One, that players do naturally have peaks and troughs, and I think, you know, expecting a player to deliver 8s and 9s out of 10s every week is kind of unrealistic unless you're one of only 2 or 3 players that have played the game in the last 15 years or so. But I do think that midfield balance, I do feel that Arteta, I think he knows his front three. I think he knows his first choice defence, and let's be honest, he knows his first choice goalkeeper now. But I just think the midfield is that kind of part of the pitch which kind of connects the defensive game up with the attacking game, and I just feel that the personnel and the style of play and the balance is definitely affecting Ødegaard, because he's having to get involved in a lot more duels. I noticed in the first half a couple of times yesterday he was kind of fighting for the ball in quite deep positions, getting barged off the ball quite easily and landing in a heap. And whereas I really do respect and appreciate his work rate for the team, I'd much rather him, you know, he obviously triggers our press from the front, but I'd like him to kind of not have to worry so much about what's going on. Obviously, if a team breaks us and they're all charging forward and we're winning 1-0 with 2 minutes to go, I want him back doing the dirty work. But all things being equal, I want him to be in a position where he can just pretty much look forward when he gets the ball and just focus on playing that killer pass, scoring that match-winning goal, you know, knitting together. Because a lot of what was good in us last season was what he was doing in that right-hand space there. You know, on his left foot, you know, connecting really nicely with Ben White and Bukayo Saka, and you know, giving us that kind of threat down the right hand. Like him and Xhaka were the kind of guys last season that Xhaka would kind of link up with Zinchenko and Martinelli. Ødegaard would link up with Saka and White, and our attacking play would kind of sort of go from there really. And obviously we don't have Xhaka anymore. No one's really connecting up on the left as well. That's a bit broken. And I think on the right hand side, you know, maybe Ødegaard's having to be forced a bit too deep, but
running around.
Yeah,
much. Yeah.
That's kind of that's my rather long-winded sort of thoughts around it. But
I think it's good. I think it's two things. It's the balance, and it's also he's in a bit of bad form at the moment. In a nutshell, I think that's really about it. We know the quality he's got. We know that it'll come good again for us. And maybe with the game coming up on Saturday against Sheffield United, maybe there's an opportunity there for him to have a bit more freedom and a bit more time and space on the ball to sort of make things happen.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I think he'll come good for us. The goal itself, though, I mean, what I love most about that goal was the look that he gave just before shooting, because he if you looked at his eyes and looked the way his head positioned, he didn't look at the goal, but this was brilliant. He knew exactly where the goal was. He looked up as if he was going to pass it and then just leathered it, and sort of that whipped finish. It was sublime, superb goal. And fully deserved. And it's his third Champions League goal in as many games for us. Incredible performance. Really, really positive. And at that point, you're thinking, well, that's it. The game's done and dusted. They're going to sort of retreat into their shell. Obviously, not to be. We were a bit lackluster then, weren't we, from the old set piece? And then, what is it, 5 minutes or so after that?
Yeah, no, we enjoyed, and I actually think the fact they scored so sort of quickly and definitively, so quickly after we got our second goal, really did impact the rest of the game for me. I think it'd be different if we kind of went 2-0 up, still played quite well. Maybe they'd scored their second with 10 minutes to go, and you go, okay. But we seemed to go kind of almost become a bit shell shocked when they got their equaliser. I mean, ball in from the from a corner, and Goodell, which was actually Gabriel Jesus, ironically, was meant to be marking him, and he gets away, and he doesn't even have to really work to make that space in the box, and just planted a free header into the corner of the end. It's a shame that it was Jesus actually, because he'd gone from his star being as high as it's probably been all season with his assist and his goal to hang on a minute, what's going on here? And to be honest as well, you probably have to question why Jesus
this is
detailed unless we were doing zonal marking, but he's a very physical centre half, and you've got one of the shortest I mean, I know he puts himself around a lot and he plays with a lot of heart, but he's not going to win the physical battle that someone like a Gabriel or a Saliba or a Declan Rice would in that position. So yeah, it was a bit disappointing for me how, whether it's a zonal marking thing or whether Jesus was asked to mark him, he shouldn't have been able to get away that easily and have that much space to plant that header in the net.
The thing that struck me was how stationary Goodell was. He just sort of waited for the ball to arrive. And he being afforded that much time and space, drifting in behind Ben White and then losing Gabriel Jesus, that's quite poor to concede that from a set piece. In my view, I think we should have done a lot better than that. You got to make them work for it at least. Just to get a free header from a corner, and it's not like it's back, but it's sort of near a postish. We shouldn't be doing that. Really.
And the strange thing about the game is there was never any kind of hint. I thought the entire game, pretty much. I don't really recall any. Well, I recall Raya playing a couple of dodgy balls out from the back, and we'll get on to one of his other mistakes towards the end of this pod. But I think defensively, I thought we played really, really well. I mean, we were really, really solid. I mean, that trio of Saliba, Gabriel, and Rice in front of them, and with Jorginho, it's working from a defensive perspective. And I really did notice that I kind of expected Sevilla to come out in the second half, crowd up, players up, and giving it a good crack. But they were so sort of passive and not really at the races that when we gave away such a sloppy goal, you could hear the crowd immediately going crazy, and it just gave them some unnecessary impetus. I mean, I know you can't. I know things can happen in football, but if they were knocking on the door and playing really well from an attacking perspective, you go, you know what, these guys are pretty good. We've got to just try and do what we can. But it felt like we gifted them a goal so quickly, and then you still got over half an hour of the game to play from there. And I noticed the game after that. The one criticism I'd say of Arsenal is after we did concede the goal, we probably should have still, probably for the next 10 minutes after that, tried to get a foothold back in the game again and still continue to play our stuff. But I noticed it was very much, I wouldn't say it was like all hands to the pump, but I noticed Arsenal definitely started to retreat and just kind of thought, you know what, we're 2-1 up. We obviously want to win this game 2-1. Or we obviously want to win the game, so let's retreat. But I do feel like there was potentially a goal in it for us had we, had we sort of had the minerals about us, and maybe a little bit more ambition. Because a lot of the stuff they did after that was just kind of high balls into the box. We saw they took Jesus Navas off, who I thought was quite good actually for a guy who's about 86 years old, bombing up and down the wing with those blue eyes of his. But yeah, they took him off and they brought on, I've forgotten his name now. This is great podcasting, but I've got it here. I know it slipped my mind, but yeah, they swapped him out and then they were playing a lot of sort of high balls from deep. I noticed Rakitic was almost playing like a pivot.
Yeah,
trying to play the old long ball game up to Yusuf and Nasiri, and then a few balls. I mean, Mariano came on as well, and he looked really, really bright, really athletic. And I have to say credit. I mean, it never led to anything in the end because it was given as a handball, but one long sort of raking pass reached him, and he sort of took a slight touch on his arm, but then and then hit the bottom of the bar. But when you're looking at the replay, Raya made a really good save, two-handed, just to get a little nibble on that one. And then there was like a flurry of overhead kicks. I remember a Campos took one. Yeah, it was all getting a little bit. I think Sevilla were getting a bit desperate by that stage. I mean, they were throwing the kitchen sink at it, but they just seemed to have a little bit of like one-dimensional kind of way of trying to get that goal, really. And when the opposition is trying lots of overhead kicks, that probably you're still kind of in control, even if it doesn't quite feel that way. So
yeah, we were holding our breath a bit, I think, after they scored, because we gifted them that goal. Really, we should never have allowed them to get that header. Yeah. And at that point, then you're thinking, oh crap, here we go. They're going to do worse what we did to Chelsea, and try and like nick a draw or a point from this one. But I mean, the one thing I will say, that chance for Mariano where it came over and he used his hand a bit, you've got to give credit to Ray, because you play to the whistle, and boy did he play to the whistle, tipping that on. That for me, well done to him. I mean, it doesn't completely absolve him of all of his calamities of late, but credit to him. He made a great save there, tipping that onto the bar. Because that, if in another world, he made that could have easily flown into the roof of the net. But obviously handball as well. But we'll gloss over that. But so a little bit sort of retreating, going back into our shell at that point, and it was just disappointing, given how 5 minutes earlier we were in complete control of the game, and you thought, oh, hang on a minute, could get a third at this point, but. I don't like it when we do that. I just think that we should be have a little bit more belief in ourselves, and just say, well, look, that's a one-off. We're still the team that are pushing and trying to make things happen. Let's get on the ball and play our game. They weren't particularly great last night, Sevilla. I was expecting a lot more from them.
Yeah, they seemed to, their final kind of action, they had a lot of kind of running and thrust, particularly down that right-hand side, a lot of legs down there. I thought Campos played quite well, but they were in it. They never sort of found En-Nesyri in the game at all. They never kind of were able to kind of get the ball, connect their cross to him, or because he's quite dangerous from in the air, but he's also he's a good striker. But yeah, I agree. I don't think they were that good. And I mean, some people might say smart management. We've got the 2-1. We don't need another goal. But I think when you're trying to defend for half an hour, as we saw against Crystal Palace earlier in the season, albeit with 10 men, it's a long time to try and see the game out. And it was almost, we got so shocked by the goal they got, that they just kind of like pushed us into our shells. But yeah, I think maybe once we kind of get a bit more confidence in our attacking play, maybe we'll look to play those final stages of a game a little bit more different, perhaps. But I thought Arteta made some good substitutions. I thought, I'm actually all right with Kai Havertz coming on and playing. They were saying on the TV that he came on as a false nine, but he almost came on as like a like a target man, but still kind of playing a little bit deeper. You know, almost like a release valve or an out ball, a guy who can basically just get the ball. Like people go on about his height all the time at the moment. It makes me laugh because he's not particularly good in the air, but he does have that technical. I know people keep saying, "Oh, he's got the height and stuff like that," but
the hold-up player, I guess.
I've never seen him score a header, to be honest. But I do like the fact that when you get the ball into him, he can hold the ball up. His technique is solid. So I was quite happy to see him come on. Obviously, Jesus went down with what looked like
was a hamstring.
very much. Yeah, and after the game, he was grinning, I noticed, in the mix zone and talking about how it didn't seem to be much. So, and the word on TNT Sports was that it actually was kind of a minor thing, which I was relieved to see because he did leave the pitch looking pretty gingerly, to be honest. I was quite worried about that. But I thought Trossard, when he came on, he worked his socks off, won lots of really good cheap free kicks to kind of wind the clock down. And like his technical level's good, strong on the ball.
Yeah,
I thought he did particularly well. But I also want to. I don't know if we want to talk about Declan Rice's second half performance, but you know, we had a situation where he carried the ball about 40 yards, went through about 3 or 4 of their players. We had times where a ball over the top was played into the channel, and he was there almost as a centre half, mopping it up. And clearing his lines, often clearing his lines, actually not just lumping the ball, but feeding the ball down the line to the likes of Nketiah or Trossard. I thought Declan Rice yesterday, particularly in the second half, was absolutely exceptional. I mean, I feel like he displayed the full sort of, or almost the full range of what he can do in terms of being able to carry the ball, being able to mop up almost as a sweeper. And pass the ball and just have that kind of security. But a minute of your time, if you don't mind, for Declan Rice.
Well,
I've
got all the time in the world for Declan. I love that guy. I wanted him to be at Arsenal for so many years. I thought, you know, I remember playing FIFA back in the day, and I'd be like, oh yeah, we'll get him in the Arsenal team. He's just absolutely phenomenal. A proper Rolls-Royce midfielder, you know, that we've been crying out for many years at Arsenal. You know, that player that can do a lot of things and cover a lot of distance. I love the sort of leadership and authority he shows, and you know, you can see it in the way he plays. He's so confident and assured of what he's doing. The ability to you know, he's not afraid to play a safe little pass, but invariably he never gets himself into trouble. He reads the game so well. It's just an absolute joy to watch this guy. And you know, in moments like that last night, you know, you could see the way that his confidence on the ball, it's sort of, it makes you think, okay, it's all right, we're good. Declan's on point. You know, we've got this. Phenomenal. I mean, absolutely great performance. I mean, I picked out him, you know, Martinelli, Jesus, obviously, and Tomiyasu were the sort of standout performers on the night, I think, for me. Saka had a bit of a quiet one. He took a bit of a knock as well, I think. You know, fingers crossed he's all right. He's in and out of the walls all the time at the moment, isn't he? Getting kicked. You know.
It's really hard with Saka because you kind of like, part of me thinks, oh, it's good that he goes down because he's kind of eating up the clock if we're winning a game. And let's be honest, at the moment, unless you're Bournemouth, we're not really, or PSV, we're not really blowing teams away. So often when we're winning games, him going down maybe part of the, maybe just a very good actor, but he did seem to kind of have a kick to his Achilles yesterday, which apparently is a knock he's been carrying last season. But yeah, he had a very quiet game, to be honest. But I guess it's quite unusual for all of your attacking gems to be flourishing at the same time. But yeah, and just another word on Declan Rice. The thing I've noticed about him is whenever the game states are harder, he gets better. Yeah, he really digs in defensively. I noticed when they scored their goal and the crowd were absolutely, you know, whipping themselves up into a frenzy. He was very good, sort of talking to his teammates about kind of calming down and just, you know, just saying, look, we're still winning this game. It's a bit of a freak thing, and you know, we keep going. And in the last 10 minutes, he was mopping everything up at the back. You know, times where the ball got clipped over Gabriel's head, and he was kind of there sweeping up on the left hand side, sort of as a sweeper. And just the tougher it gets for him, the more he seems to sort of thrive and buzz off of it, really. And I think, and you also forget that he's only been at the club a few months. I think once the midfield balance and the personnel hopefully gets better and more settled, and Rice is going to be more sure. Because at the moment he feels like he's playing a bit defensive as he sees Jorginho there, who's trying to help him out, and now he wants to get forward and try and do something. And I kind of wonder if there will be a time where maybe he'll just become even more comfortable in the system he's in and what his roles are within that. Once we've had the same midfield three playing for like a handful of games in a row, he's only going to get better and better. And I do think there's more he's going to potentially offer in the from an attacking perspective as well. But I thought he was excellent last night. I feel so much more confident with him in the side from a defensive perspective. And when he carried the ball, through about 3 or 4 players and popped it out to Saka as well, just to carry the ball and get us back up the pitch and relieve some of that pressure as well. It's just absolutely, once he opens his legs up and gets going on a run, he's powerful, stridey sort of player, and he's quite hard to stop, isn't he?
It's beautiful to watch. I mean, what a player! I still have to pinch myself to sort of see that he's there. I mean, he's definitely. It won't be long before the armband is on his arm. I can see him sharing the duties with Odegaard. Quite easily.
Yeah,
it's definitely going to happen. Definitely going to happen.
I mean, do we want to talk about Raya being the first goalkeeper in history to come for a cross, have his fist pointing away from his goal, but still manage to punch the ball backwards on top of the roof of the net? Or do we want to feed this narrative any further?
I don't know, man. If you go over social media, it's everywhere, isn't it? It's like every single game there is something. I mean, we touched on it on the first half, is distribution, and I don't know what to say. I mean, the guy, he's come for that cross, hasn't he? And he's punched it and it's gone behind him and landed on the roof of the net. I mean, the thing is, we're getting away with it. This is the key thing right now. We are getting away with it. But there's going to come a point where we're not getting away with it. We're riding our luck a bit here. And Arteta, he's got a decision to make. I mean, he's sticking by him. But I mean, what's he going to do? I mean, what does Aaron Ramsdale got to do to get back in that team? It just seems he didn't do much wrong to get kicked out in the first place. And then since coming in, I know we've been getting, sort of results, and we won a few games. We haven't lost in the league, but he doesn't fill me with great confidence right now, Raya. And so something's got to give, and either he settles down and he plays through this period of uncertainty, or Arteta stays true to his word and he's a bit more ruthless about this. And
I think the only way he gets dropped, if he continues playing, say if he plays the way he is at the moment, but we say lose 3 or 4 games in a row, or drop, or maybe lose 3, draw 1, or something like that, or go on a bit of a dodgy run, I think potentially then, because if you're basing it on his own performances, he would have been dropped maybe a game or 2 ago. But I think because we're undefeated in the Premier League this season, we've only lost against Lens. There is also that argument to say, well, we're still winning games even though the team's not. And actually, you could probably, I think there's so much focus on Raya just because of the fact it's the goalkeeping position. But then when you actually look at a number of other areas and positions in the team across the pitch, they've not been firing either. But no one's turning around saying, before when we saw the way Jesus played against Chelsea, everyone was saying, oh, no one, for example, was saying, oh, we've got to drop Jesus now. No one was saying that, but they say it for the goalkeeping position. So it's kind of, there is a bit of a double standard, I think, with, not listening too much to the media. I mean, the media are not talking at all about the fact that Crystal Palace have Sam Johnson and Dean Henderson both in their squad fighting for one shirt. And they don't talk about the fact that Brighton are rotating their goalkeepers. They don't talk about the fact that West Ham have got 2 number ones essentially in their team. So I try and avoid.
It's difficult
getting too. It is tough, but because I still do like Raya as a goalkeeper, and again, I would have probably dropped him yesterday if I was the manager, even though I like the player. But I think we need to try and not get too swept up in the media thing. I mean, no one at the moment is talking about Odegaard to be dropped, and you could probably say, well, he started off the season all right, scored a couple of penalties, gone off the boil massively, but no one's talking about, oh, we need to drop him for Havertz. No one's going to say that. Or we need to give Trossard a game. So there's a bit of a double standard, I think, sometimes with goalkeeping in the way people talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the game coming up against Sheffield United, there is an opportunity there for him to perhaps. I'm not sure he'll do it with the goalie, but there is an opportunity for him to rotate a few players, perhaps. I mean, I really want to see Trossard given an opportunity. Maybe take Saka out of the starting lineup. He's got that record of the most consecutive starts. That's done and dusted now. He's looked a little bit fragile of late. Take him out of the firing line. Give Trossard an opportunity. One game isn't going to, it's not going to make that much of a difference. I mean, the quality of opposition as well. I think there's a chance here for us to sort of give players a bit of a rest and use some of the squad. I want to see Smith Rowe given an opportunity. Maybe Vieira can come back in. I mean, maybe start Havertz. I don't know. Let's use the squad, because I think last season this was something that we were guilty of. I know we didn't have the biggest and a lot of depth in the squad, but he seemed so fixated with his sort of starting 11 that when he called on the other players, they were a little bit rusty. It's a long old season.
I agree. I mean, he needs to try and either trust or find the right balance for the squad players to come in. Because I do feel that there's sort of a reluctance still to use. I mean, I used the analogy of Smith Rowe before around the ability to kind of get on the ball, carry the ball, and take advantage of tiring legs. That's not something that ever seems to get used. I mean, defensive midfield, we don't really have too many options. It's Rice and Jorginho at the moment. Is pretty much what's going to happen. But I think someone like Trossard, he deserves a few starts now. He came on yesterday, he looked solid, he worked hard, puts himself about. Obviously scored the equaliser at Stamford Bridge. And I know, Martinelli, you say like he shouldn't have been dropped because he went and scored yesterday. But maybe you could try Trossard as a false nine here and there, and try him as for me, he's the one player that I do look at and go, why is he not getting more of it? Because he's the kind of guy that when he does come on, he does deliver. He does invariably do something and bring something to the team. I mean, he scored against PSV, scored against Chelsea. I think there was probably about 4 or 5 games ago. I remember him starting a game at home. I've forgotten who it was against. Was it against Spurs? I can't remember. But I remember he started a game at home and he had a really quiet game. But I think that can always happen when you're in and out of the team. I think commit to your core players. But it's got to be sort of, starters and also finishers, players that are going to come on and do something. But I've got no problem with Saka being rested here and there and stick Trossard out there for a game. It's Sheffield United. We should be able to, providing we can score early and doesn't become too much of a tough game, then we should be all right in a game like that.
Yeah. So just bringing it back to the Champions League, fabulous result, leaves us top of the pile after 3 rounds. We're looking good now to progress, because this, we were both a little bit apprehensive about this game, thinking that maybe we'd nick a draw or something. But 6 points on the board. We got the return fixture against Sevilla up next in November, 2 weeks' time. I don't think we've got anything to fear. I'm expecting us to get 3 points in that game, and I think we're looking good to get through to the last 16.
Yeah, I think any victory away to Sevilla is a great result, to be honest. I mean, when you look at the history of that club, I think they won a La Liga in the 50s or 2, and that's about it. And then they've won nothing until about 10 years ago. So they're actually they're having the most kind of glorious time, if you like, as their history as a club. And there's a lot of scouts that have gone there and come a cropper. So even though I was a little bit, if I'm being a bit picky, wishing we kind of showed a bit more to kind of, I think a 3-1 victory would have looked a little bit better. I mean, with this Champions League, it's all about just getting your victory. And I had a huge sort of feeling of satisfaction when the final whistle went.
Absolutely.
To go to Sevilla and walk away with 3 points was massive. I mean, they were saying that, Sevilla and Arsenal were like the top 2 teams in the group. So to get the away leg done and get the 3 points there was was brilliant. And I think obviously, the other game finishing in a draw has put us in a good position now. I think what's been interesting with this group so far is that even when we lost to Lens in the first game, I think Sevilla and PSV played out a draw as well. So it does feel like some of the other teams are sort of cannibalising each other a bit along the way.
Yeah.
So even the fact we've lost one of our 3 games hasn't seemed to be a massive impact. And I think now also having 2 matches at home in a row, I'd like to think that we can go into the final match away against PSV and basically play the kids and rest some players for the domestic stuff. I mean, I certainly think that's got to be the target now. I think if we can now get 6 points from the next 2 home games, we'll be there, and we'll be there probably as group winners as well. So yeah, I must admit the Lens game was a bit of a rude awakening for me. I thought, whoa, this Champions League is definitely different gravy. And when I heard the atmosphere there in France and the way they finished, and I thought, okay, even teams that we perceive as maybe not being quite elite, they can still offer something. So it was good to see. It was good to see. Really happy with the result.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, I mean, post-match, I mean, there is the injury, I think, to Jesus. It does, I think, is a hamstring injury. I think they've confirmed it today. I think I think Arteta came out and said there's a hamstring injury. So I think there's some. I'm not sure if that's just a minor niggle or if it's going to be more of a long-term, 3-weeker sort of thing. Any sort of risk though. I don't want. If he's not 100%. Don't play him against Sheffield United. Maybe this is a game where Eddie Nketiah can get a couple of goals. Get that little bit of confidence back in him. Because he's looked much maligned. He just hasn't really worked for Eddie at the moment, is it? He's just seems a little bit off the boil. And so I think a goal would do him good. Maybe he starts against Sheffield United in my view. And then maybe Trossard for me coming in for Saka. That would be good, I think, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they were saying yesterday that Jesus' injury looked kind of minor, and it was more that he came off because he felt something as opposed to it being like a proper tear or a strain. But I agree. I mean, we should, without sounding arrogant, we should have enough in the tank to be able to do something, to be able to pick up these 3 points against Sheffield United, you'd imagine. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking and hoping. So yeah, and if there's any doubt, don't play me. It's just annoying. It's still that I do still have this kind of nagging frustration with Arsenal, though, that just when we start to feel like we get our players back for a few games, there's always 1 or 2 that they just have a muscular problem, and I know there's a lot of teams at the moment with issues, but it does feel often that it sort of impacts. It seems to impact really key players for Arsenal as opposed to, Eddie Nketiah is never getting bloody injured. Let's put it that way. But it always seems to be Jesus with his knee or Partey with a muscular injury. It's just Martinelli as well. Saka's been kicked to bits, but I just hope we get our players back on the field all at the same time.
Yeah. So, bold predictions. We both got it wrong. We both said draws.
Well, we didn't. I said Arsenal to get at least a point.
Did you really?
So I've done the real lazy cop-out. It's a bit of a cop-outy kind of one, to be fair, but I got it. And you had a score draw between the 2 sides. So, but you've had 3 wins this season in your predictions. I've only had 2, including this one. So you're still 1 up on me, that's for sure. I mean, what are you saying for Sheffield United then? Have you got one?
Oh, I'm going big.
Oh, okay.
4-0.
Woo! Wow. Okay.
Just straight up 4-0.
Who for? Sheffield United?
Oh yeah. Ollie Byrne, yeah. I can see.
Yeah. Ollie McBurney.
Yeah, Ollie McBurney.
3 overhead kicks.
Yeah.
I know it sounds negative, but I've got Arsenal to win by a single goal because I've noticed
goal.
Yeah, because whenever what was the game? Was it Fulham or something where you were texting me saying we're going to win 5-0 in this one, and it might have been the Fulham one. I swear it was. But I know the games enjoy the least watching at the moment for Arsenal. I'm sure it's the same with a lot of the other big sizes. Whenever we're playing at home against a team that's stationed towards the bottom of the league, those are the games I cannot stand watching. The PSV game, they came and had a go at us. Last night, Sevilla, had a bit of a go. We had a bit of a go. It kind of made for kind of a nice, enjoyable, intense game to watch. But the games I can't stand are when we're like 60 minutes in, it's 0-0, and we're at home against a team towards the bottom of the league, and we just cannot pick the lock for love nor money. And we get one.
I think we'll have fun. Oh. I think we're gonna have fun this weekend. I think it'll be. I reckon we're gonna get a goal. I mean, this isn't part of the prediction, but I think we're gonna score within the first 15, and I think that's gonna set the tone because their heads will drop a bit. I mean, I've looked at their results. Yeah. I mean, they've done all right, Sheffield United, but they had that game against Newcastle, didn't they, when they got pumped 8-0 at home. They can concede goals. I mean, even Man United went to their ground and got a 2-1 win. So if Man United can go there and beat them, then imagine what we can do to them at the Emirates. I'm expecting big things. I mean, I want to see a bit of rotation. I want to see Eddie on the score sheet. I want to see Ødegaard on the score sheet. I want Ødegaard to be pulling the strings. I want Trossard maybe to get a goal. I'm feeling really positive about this game. I reckon we're gonna turn them over and an emphatic victory.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think for me, it's the early goal is key. I think if we don't get an early goal, the longer it goes, the more tense it gets, these kinds of games. And like I say, I don't find them the most enjoyable, but it's a completely different story. I mean, I remember last season beating Forest at home 5-0. And then we got a relatively early goal in that game, and it just kind of set things up. I think we might have been 3-0 up at half time. But if we get to 20, 30 minutes in and we haven't scored, that's when I do worry about these games. But let's keep our fingers crossed, shall we, for a nice early goal. I think that might be it. Do we leave it there?
I think we leave it there. I think we're done, aren't we, for this week? Or
yeah. Great win off the back of that Chelsea game, and let's go into the weekend and go again. Pick up another 3 points there.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'll see you on the next one.
See you on the next one.
See you later, guys.
Take care, guys.
Bye. Bye.